The kingdoms of life matter because of their colonial scientific history, not in spite of it, writes environmental media theorist Derek Woods. Kingdoms, all those little boxes, glassy jars to put the world into and order it up, have always been part of the colonial project. Yet this story is inseparable from the history of the image. To catalog the world, first it had to be mapped. It started with illustrations, trying to capture bodies, plants, and animals in sketches. Then photography was born, and suddenly the world to colonial science was imagined as just waiting to be reproduced, as Ariella Azoulay puts it. Azoulay writes, "When photography emerged, it didn't halt the process of plunder that made others and others' worlds available to some, but rather it accelerated it. Have you ever taken a photo of the sky at sunset? A beautiful flower? Have you ever texted that photo to a friend, shared it in your feed? That little world of images trapped behind the glassy case of your phone? It was this, the capturing feed, that I tasked myself with understanding. Of course, only when that network began in turn to feed on its users." You could say it was a bit of a departure from my typical media studies research, but I couldn't stay away. There had been whispers on the web of odd deaths, or perhaps comas is a better term. They weren't making mainstream headlines, but if you knew the right places to look online, you might come across an article discussing this phenomena of individuals destroying their digital devices, wandering into the woods like something from a horror movie. They'd lay down and never wake back up, just a full catatonic state. But the strangest part of all of this, the reason I can't stop thinking about it, is each of these victims' phone, and in one incident, a DSLR camera, seemed to be fostering an infectious fungus. It had begun to eat away at the glass, plastic, metal, before seemingly turning on the user. That's how I came across the blog, the website of a self-proclaimed mycophiliac who had set themselves up archiving these events. That's where I saw the photo of an infected device with the screen ripped off. Every bit of hardware beneath had been eaten up and replaced by a web of fungal matter. How had the phone even been working days before? Mushrooms are merely the fruits of much larger organisms. Beneath the ground is their mycelium, like a net that weaves through the soil, sometimes spanning across entire forests. Could that be the material that was found inside the phone? Could the mycelium be infecting the digital network? I must sound absolutely insane, but anthropologist Anna Singh writes about how mushrooms could have traveled across continents through filling the stratosphere with their spores, braving the harsh UV and temperature conditions. There's something about the stratosphere that inspires airy dreams. Imagine spores circling the globe, writes Singh. How hard is it to imagine then that there are spores traveling the cloud, a contaminated digital space? Anyway, the blog. It's the strangest thing. The posts range from archival to posts that are really unusual yet kind of poetic. For example, on November 20th, the author writes, "Fungi feed on the dead. They clean our world. The digital image world is spirit photography. Mushrooms are just cleaning up the mess. We don't need to be afraid of fungi because we can't place them." Cryptic as fuck, but how interesting. Fungi have always historically destabilized colonial sciences taxonomies. Woods, ever a lover of fungi himself, writes that because of these unusual creatures, the plant-animal binary as a persistent ontology of life cracks open to yield a multiplicity. Another post, this one from October 2nd. "The digital mycelium doesn't touch everything, but it touches you. It touches me. It reaches out through the web and finds us, consuming and transforming. We're not just connected to it, but we're reaching out and touching the earth. Don't you miss touching earth? I suppose I do. Imagine being able to touch the planet with no concrete for miles, fully immersed in the interconnected web of life. How could it change us?" Instead of calling this period of environmental crisis we're living through the Anthropocene, Donna Haraway calls it the Cthulhucene. Haraway writes, "The Cthulhucene is made up of ongoing multi-species stories and practices of becoming in times that remain at stake, in precarious times in which the world is not finished and the sky has not fallen yet. We are at stake to one another." Things only get stranger. Today I opened my email and somehow, maybe through the university directory, but how would they know to contact me? And somehow the author of the Mycophiliac blog had written to me, "Dear Professor, I see you've become interested in the connections I've made. But, Professor, there's no digital network that connects everything. It's all imagined. Haven't you heard that the map is not the territory? You're afraid of spores coasting down internet superhighways to the front door of your phone, yet it's that very network we are exploding. Gone will be the anxious need to connect everything. Instead, we'll be made to turn and face who we are touching, how we must depend on one another. I don't know what to make of this email. How do they know me, yet so many threads in the emails spark connections for me? The fungal mycelium devouring the digital network. Sung Hui-Hu, in his book The Prehistory of the Cloud, diagnoses network fever, which is, as he puts it, the desire to connect all networks, the desire to connect every piece of information to another piece. Are we trying desperately to map the unmappable digital world, trying again to put things in boxes? Who suggests that the network is nothing but a way of mapping the external world on an internal system of knowledge, a cognitive map that attempts to explain the world's totality? At its center is a dot that always reads, "You are here." Are we trying to order the world so as to find our place in it? And if so, what is this fungi trying to tell us about that place? And why is it eating our technologies, our images? I got one more email, this one strange and more prescient than the previous. It's as if they heard my questions, and then again, maybe they had. Dear Professor, we are not merely tearing down the network, we are offering the alternative. Out of the anthro waste and the digitrash we were born and now we are feeding. We are offering the chance for life and death and everything in between in this time of precarity. This project is boundless. We are eating boundaries, the turning of the world into categories. We are composting the reduction of the world into images that can be moved around and bought and sold. And as the world is turned to rubble and life is forced into bits, we are the ghosts that emerge, uncannily dead and alive, finding the places in between. We'll see you soon, Professor. These strange infections happening all over could be a sign of change, maybe a reclamation. Not just of nature resisting and fighting back against the ways it's been dissected, taxonomized, but maybe the reclaiming of us into its grand mass. The book, The Haunted Landscapes of the Anthropocene, suggests that we are living in a world of ghosts. Ghosts of the species who have been lost and the landscapes long since forgotten by amnesiac progress. Could this be what the author of these emails means? Could these cases of catatonia be the production of ghosts? Lives in the in-between, growing out of anthropogenic rubble. As if this strangeness wasn't enough, I received an unmarked package with a small mushroom inside. Frilly, plump, and beautiful. Same one from the image I'd seen on the blog. I have to test it. I have to know what happened to the people who had encountered it before me. I'm determined to perform a surgery, or perhaps better put, an inoculation. Slicing my body open and introducing the fungus. It previously fed on photographic images, but what is the photograph if not a dissection of the world, of the body, trying to get under its skin? And suddenly nothing was the same. How could it be? Haraway writes, "Nothing lives everywhere, everybody lives somewhere. Nothing is connected to everything, everything is connected to something." And at once that was me. I'm somewhere different now. Touching the earth, touching lives I'd always been tied to, but now suddenly aware of my place in the great mycelium of things of life. Bubont et al. Tell us to picture Nigerians, those strange creatures, corals, jellyfish, anemones. They write, "Terrible and wonderful, we hardly know how to give them names. Let them show us their complex designs. Imagine swimming among them rather than locking them into rungs on a ladder that leads only to ourselves. How many evolutionary gifts do these creatures entangle us in? I am now swimming in great seas of jellyfish, watching their sinuous and celestial bodies. We are spores floating through the stratosphere, facing the radiation of the sun. I am now part of the great network beneath the forests. Unreproducible, we are unimaginable. Death may not, after all, be the end of life. After death comes the strange life of ghosts, as it's written in The Haunted Landscapes of the Anthropocene. After death, life persists as strange ghosts. After death comes fungi.